Hey guys, Patrick Blunt here with Greenhow Handmade Ironworks here on a cold, rainy February day. We are in the shop working on these double gates that we have in the shop now, and I want to talk about bending curves in large bar stocks. So this is a 1-inch solid bar. This curve is bent for the top rail of these gates. These are our double gates, so they have to mirror each other. So this curve has to stay consistent between the two gates. How do you do that? There are a number of ways to attack this. You could just bend this bar, heat and bend this bar little by little, and match it, keep matching it back and forth to your drawing to make sure you're getting it right. You could do that at the anvil. You could do that with fork and dog at the vise. You could do it with the fly press. Those are all, you could do it with a hydraulic press. Those are all options with bending bars. I tend to err on the side of building a jig for these scrolls, for these bends right here. And that is because I know I can build that jig, and I know that if I heat and work this bar consistently in the same way, I will end up with the same curve, and my curves will match and these gates will match. So how do I build my jig? Well, I measured from the tippy top here all the way down past where this bar goes back into a flat right here to here, and I measured down the center line up to there, and I got 3 feet. So then I went and I cut myself 3 feet of 3/8 by 1.5 inch bar. I'm fortunate enough to own a ring roller that can roll 3/8 stock. So I actually just stuck that, I marked where my curve started and where my curve stopped on my bar, and I just stuck it in my ring roller and rolled that curve into it. And so I'm rolling the curve on the outside of that bar, because this bar will bend on the inside of that jig. Then I made myself a little stop point here to be able to put that bar in and grab it, and then it's just go slow, heat small sections at a time, and ease this bar around that curve. So next, what I want to do is I'm going to take you guys over to the vise where I have my jig set up. I'm going to show you that jig, and we'll talk a little bit about the building of that. Jig building is kind of an art in itself. There are a lot of smiths that are extremely good at it and build some very complicated jigs that are kind of amazing, really. I do build a lot of jigs. I'm still coming up in the in the art of jig building, but I'm getting better and better every job. Every job that I do, there's at least 1 or 2 jigs that I'm going to build. So you learn as you go. So anyways, I'm rambling. I'm going to take you guys over to the vise. Let's show you all that jig, and then let's bend the second bar for this. Also, note that I have left this bar long. A nib here and a nib down here, right? The reason for that is I do that because after I bend that, it's much easier to come in here and mark this and cut that little nib off here and cut this little nib off here than it is to try to get this to where it's going to come out exactly perfect and then you be short a little bit. I tend to err on the further side, on the side of caution, and always give myself a little bit more stock than I think I'm going to need, because I have done this where I thought I was going to do it where it was exactly perfect and I wasn't going to have to make any cuts, and then somehow it shrunk in the bending process and I was short, and then I had to trash that one and bend another one. So I always err on the side of just giving myself a little bit more stock. So let's take you over here and show you this. All right, guys, so here is my jig. So again, 3/8 stock by 1.5. This is the top of my bar. This is where my top bar is gonna hit. comes around. This is where that flat on the back side comes off. I built myself a little stop here and a little holster for my bar to be able to slide into. There's a stop there, and I can then heat this section and bend it around. Now, when you're bending these bars around these jigs, it's real easy to get overzealous and try to just really like force it around. If any of you guys have taken a class with me, you've heard me talk a number of times about the rule of fluidity. What's gonna happen is you will have a hot point here. Once you start bending past that hot point, you're gonna try to bend it more on the jig, but that pressure is going to be relieved here at your hot point. And what's gonna happen is that hot point is gonna bow off of your jig just slightly, giving you a gap between the bar and that jig, and it's not gonna give you a fluid curve. So don't go too far when you're bending this. Just bend what's heated, stop, get another heat. Bend what's heated, stop, get another heat. Now, if there was a way for me to get this all the same temperature at one time, I could do that. And I do have a sword forge that I've used on a previous job. I could probably stick this bar in there and get enough of a heat to be able to do this probably in 2 heats max. The thing with that is that forge drinks propane like a drunk drinks gin. It is an extremely expensive machine to run, and for this particular job, I just don't see a need to spend the extra money to save, you know, a little bit of extra time, and that's just part of it. You're gonna do that with every job. You just gotta figure out, you know, what is the best use of my time, material, and cash to make this job profitable for me. And in this case, I just got to bend one of these. This is going to be where I'm going to go. So I just heat it in the coal forge and just do 4 or 5 inches at a time. And it's not a big bend. We can get it done pretty quickly. If this was a huge bend that was going to take me all day, I probably would err on the side of spending the money for the gas in the gas forge just to be able to get it done a little bit quicker. So anyways, let's start heating this bar up and start getting it bent around this jig, and see if we can get the other top bar bent, and we can start getting these frames together. Now, on these gates, all of these joints are welded joints. This whole frame is getting welded together. Then it's getting all finished, ground down, finished off, and there are going to be decorative riveted on corner brackets on every corner, front and back. That's what I want to get to. I want to get this all these frames put together and get those brackets on there before I start doing any of my infill or any of my pickets or any of my anything else, because it's going to be a lot easier to deal with those gates in that state than it would be once I get all of that stuff put in there. Trying to flip them back and forth and do those corner brackets would be really difficult. So again, try to think that way. Line your steps up of what you got to do. We got one more of these top bars to bend, so no time to loaf. Let's get right to it. All right, guys, so before you start bending this, it is a really good idea to put it in the jig where it's going to be and mark it right where the bend's going to start, so you know where to get your first heat. You don't want your heat back in here because we're not even wanting to work this. This doesn't even need to get bent. And you don't want your heat too far up here because then it won't work. It'll just bend here, it won't bend back here. You want this to be as gentle of a curve as possible. So we're gonna get our mark it here, we'll get our first heat here, and I'll just start edging this around inch by inch, snugging it right up to this jig, and then we'll have that curve done. finish at the jig there. We brought it over here to the table and set it on the drawing. It is still hot, so be very careful when you're doing this. Get some scrap pieces of steel to kind of move it around with, or tongs or something. I set it on the drawing. We line it up on this end where we need to line up. We're lining up on this end where we need to line up. I have got a little bit of a bow in it I've got to take out. And we're off of our bend right here slightly, but that's okay because this one is also off. So as long as these two match, that's really more what I'm concerned with. And they do. They match perfectly. They both match exactly. So as long as those two are matching the same, I'm really happy with that. I like this curve. I like it a lot. So we're good with that. I'm going to take that little bow out. Then we're going to trim this one that's cold, and we can go ahead and start putting this frame together. So that's kind of how I tackle these large kind of swooping curves that are in pieces. I normally always make a jig for it, especially if there's more than one. So that's a little bit extra time spent, but a lot less extra time fiddling with it, trying to get them both perfect. So I hope this was helpful. Thanks so much, guys.